What is going on, you guys? Today I have another episode where we're going to be reviewing a YouTuber named HoMath, and the title here is Zones, a map of relationship types to help relieve dating confusion. Sounds interesting, especially with the YouTuber name, so let's get into it.
Okay, this is the new zones chart. It is replacing the old zones chart. This one is pretty much fully fleshed out, as usual. If you can find something that I missed, please let me know, but I think I got it all. This is a chart that is divided into the way that men categorize women and the way that women categorize men. Men have one set of values. Men add up what we think about your looks, your personality. We subtract how much availability you're giving to other men, and then here I drew a cabinet, which is the male version of the galaxy, because there are other things that can make women more and less valuable to men, but it's not very much. These many things can make a big difference, a big impact on how women like men. But over here it's
And by the way, I think what he means there is men are a little bit simpler. Like with the cabinet, it's a couple of things, and then with women, like you ask them like what they want in a man, and there's like this gigantic list. Versus men, it's like a couple of things.
not that big of an impact. So this is basically the way that men decide how much they value you. And then once we decide from the best I can get to the worst I'll take, where we're going to put you, you kind of end up in one of these boxes. And it can be pretty hard to leave. In order to do that, you would have to either improve your looks or your personality or get rid of the male attention that you have in your life. And you're not going to really be able to do it with this. If this isn't cutting it for us, this is a big lesson that a lot of women need to learn. You can't overcome lack in this department by wearing a t-shirt that he likes or picking up a hobby that he likes. That's why it's a cabinet. It's very, very small. It makes a small impact. If your cabinet is perfect for the man that you want, it might give you half a point to a point. This is really most of it. Women, on the other hand, they have two sets of criteria that they evaluate men on. They have good guy stuff and bad boy stuff. And this is one of the reasons that there's so much confusion in our culture about what women want, because they say they want good guy things, and then they actually go with men who have bad boy things. But the truth is they want both, and you don't have to choose. In our language, we say, I'm a good guy, or I'm a bad boy, or I'm good, or I'm bad, or this is, but really you can be both of these things. And in order to be both of these things, you have to maximize your physical attractiveness, face, body, height, voice, all the things that you can do, lose weight, get muscle, maximize it, and maximize your masculinity, dominance, power, confidence, smoothness, which is, I'll explain that later. Smoothness is basically how well you understand women. If you can approach a woman and you know what it is that she responds to, she's going to go, oh, you understand women. You're smooth. That requires some more unpacking. And women also respond to dark triad traits. This is a big difference between men and women. Men do not need women to have any evil stuff, any bad boy stuff. We don't need bad girls. Some guys like bad girls, but that's a personality thing. Men in general don't need girls to be bad. Women need men to be at least somewhat bad. You gotta be dangerous. You have to have the ability to be dangerous. Not necessarily go to jail, but you have to be capable of it. And that will boost your bad boy score, which is what you...
And by the way, that's why I would recommend like every guy getting into fitness, especially weightlifting, and maybe even some sort of fighting. So I hear a lot of guys talk about this, where they'll say they'll get into some sort of fighting like Krav Maga or Muay Thai or something else, like some kind of boxing, just to like have that ability, because it's something that will scare you at first, right? Like you might not want to get hit in the face if you're not used to it, and you'll kind of overcome that fear, and you kind of realize like, yeah, you probably won't have to use it, right? But like it's nice to feel like you could protect yourself and maybe your woman or your date if you're out together, right? So that's basically what he's talking about.
really want. It's better to be all bad and no good than it is to be all good and no bad, because then you end up in the friend zone. So both of these speech and thought bubbles are arranged the same way. The higher up you go, the more it is based in love, which is supportive, public, monogamous, and emotional. And the farther down you go, the less love there's going to be, and the more lust, which is going to be opportunistic, secret, multiple partners at many times, and impulsive. So of course a man is going to have lust for a keeper. Of course he is, because that means that he likes the way she looks. But he's going to have a lot of love for her. Way down here, he's going to have no love at all, and it's going to be entirely a lust-based relationship. Sleepers in the middle, where we have what women call situationships, that's where there's some level of emotional connection, but it's not really enough to be the one and only. You're kind of in a middle zone, and the man will say things like, I don't know where I'm going to be in 3 weeks, like I don't know what my life is. Yes, we do. We do know what our life is. We do know where we're going to be. We just kind of want to wait for someone who we're definitely going to put in here. You got to stop listening to these things. So for women, avoiding getting into these bad relationships is a lot easier than it is for men to avoid getting in these bad relationships. You just have to know how he feels about your looks, your personality, and your exposure to other men and the stuff you have in common. Figure out how much he likes you and judge it by how much investment he's giving you. How much of his time and energy and money and whatever it is that you value, because every woman values different kinds of investment. But if you value something and he's not giving it to you, because this is the higher you go, the more investment, the lower you go, the less investment. If he's not giving you the investment that you want, that's a very clear signal that you're not here. And you either have to change something to get here, or you have to leave and find another guy who likes you.
Okay, and I want to clear something up for anybody who doesn't know this already. So a situationship is different. I hate that I even know that word. It's different than friends with benefits. Why? Because friends with benefits is agreed, like it's in the terms of the agreement, right? You both agreed, only casual, nothing more. Cool, right? Situationship is basically you kind of talk about it or you don't really talk about it, and then it evolves into something, and you're kind of like someone's thinking like, oh, this is still casual, but you didn't really communicate too much, right? So like, and it could actually be something where you said it's not serious in the beginning, right? Like you stated like sort of like the terms then, but then somebody developed feelings. And usually what it means, right, is one side has feelings and the other side doesn't really, right? They're like not really into it. They just want like the casual part without the emotional investment, and they're not really into them like that. Like they're not interested in something long term. So that's the difference there.
So just really quick for men, keepers is obviously my one and only. This is the one woman that we care about the most. Sleepers is, these are girls who we like and we're attracted to them. And as you can see, this is the public-private line. There are sometimes that sleeper relationships enter into the public arena and will go out with you, but we still aren't really committed and we kind of waffle a little. And then there are some times where sleeper relationships are like, let's just keep this between us. Just come over at midnight, right?
Right.
Once you get down into sweepers, this is usually just mistakes. We usually wish we hadn't done this. It might be related to alcohol, or maybe it's been a really long time, but if there's ever any kind of contact here, it's called sweepers, as in under the rug, because we don't want anyone to know about it. So if a guy has ever had any level of a relationship with you and tried to hide you and not answer the phone and disappeared and everything, that's where you were. And you need to not be there because it's pretty uncomfortable. So for women...
And that can go the other way too, right? Like if you're a guy and a woman has you in the sweepers category, right? Again, not a good sign, because she's like just trying to meet you. If let's just assume that you want something more with her, right? Like you're actually into her. That would mean that you're on the opposite end of the situationship, right? Like you like her, she doesn't like you like that. She wants something casual, hook up, maybe hook up with other guys too, right? So you're kind of like essentially like a sweeper, like sort of like a booty call, like, hey, you up? You want to come over? But not really, like you're not going out together. You're not seen together. You're not acting like boyfriend, girlfriend type of stuff.
It's obviously a lot more complicated because women have two sets of criteria that they judge men on. One of them is good guy stuff and one of them is bad boy stuff. Good guy stuff, the level of good guy things that you have, which is of course how much you're investing in her. Is it enough for her? Are you presentable? Does that make you look good? That's for women, looks is broken down into presentable and face and body and height and voice. So men have that both in one thing, but women have looks separate. So if you're a really physically unattractive guy, but you're very well put together and you're giving a woman a lot of investment, then you would have a really high good guy score and a very low bad boy score, and you would end up in the friend zone. So the amount that a woman thinks you are a good guy is going to be the amount of investment that you're giving her compared to what she wants, the amount that you make her look good when you're seen together in public, because that's going to push you above the public line. And then, this is important, men subtract other men from their valuation of women, and women subtract other women from their valuation of men in the good guy zone. But women will very often keep going back to a bad boy that has a lot of girls, or a situationship with a guy who has a lot of girls. Women generally do not subtract other women from the bad boy score. They take other women from the good guy score because that's going to take away your investment in her. And over here, having other women does not take away your investment in her because it's all based in excitement and physical things. And then finally, of course, women have the galaxy, and that's many, many, many little things that each individual woman values separately, which is the male version is the cabinet. In here, a woman might have like being good with kids or liking pets or having the same hobbies in common or wearing a particular kind of shirt. There's lots and lots of little details in here that don't quite fit into anything else. It's just what fits with her life, what matches with her experience and with her feelings, and it's difficult to really predict what that's going to be. It's very individual for everybody. And this is very individual for everybody too, but this only matters a little bit. And this, if you have what a woman wants in here, it can give you a few points. Like if you're not particularly presentable, but you're okay, and you don't have a lot to invest, but you're okay, and you have a load of things in common with her, it can boost you up a few points on the good guy score. Again, not the bad boy score. So all of those things in the good guy score, they measure how much the woman trusts you to be able to be there for her and make her look good and have a very public relationship, very public. The more you are a good guy, the safer that she will feel going out with you and being seen with you in the friend zone, husband zone, or the Prince Charming zone. But again, if you have only good guy traits, she's not going to like you enough for any of these zones. You have to have some bad boy traits. And it could be just looking good. That's enough for some women. It can be, there are some guys who don't look that good, but they're very, very smooth again, and they have experience with women, and women like it when they know you have experience with women. If you are very dominant, if you're good at something like a sport, if you're the head of your social group, if you're the boss at a job, like if she works somewhere and her boss is very, very dominant over other people, that's going to sort of trigger something in there. It triggers something in the bad boy continuum. Men who are very confident in themselves. Dark triad traits also appears here. Dark triad traits are linked to power, and one of the ways that power is most easily accrued for men is by being kind of brutal to other people and using them and tricking them, and it can get pretty dark. That's why it's called that. But it does result in men getting more power and more money and more status, and all of those things are attractive to women. Again, different women value different things differently, and you can have no looks at all but very high masculinity, and women will like you like this. Women are very different from men in that way. If a woman is really unattractive but has a great personality, we generally will not say, well, her personality is worth enough to get up here. You have to have at least a bare minimum of looks for men. But for women, I want you to Google Henry Kissinger. He is not an attractive man, but he was sleeping with supermodels because he was very, very powerful on a global scale. Masculinity is very attractive to women. So you can have a maximum bad boy score if you have super high masculinity, if you have super high power and no looks. It's different. So the way that a woman feels about your two scores, she's going to evaluate what are your good guy traits and what are your bad boy traits, and she's going to evaluate how she feels about you. That creates, I split it up into 9 zones, and I just used terms that are familiar in our culture to make it easier for people to understand. We'll start with nothing. If you have no bad boy traits at all and no good guy traits, you're a ghost. Women don't even recognize you. You're just a thing. If you're the mailman, you're just the thing that makes the mail come, unless you're very attractive, and then you would jump up to here. Let's start by going up the good guy scale. If you are less than half good, if you're below this public line, and you have no bad boy traits at all, and you're less than half good, and you're pursuing a woman, she's going to say, ew, you're a creep. You're not attractive to me at all, and you're not very good. So I don't want to be around you. If you go a little bit above half, women will have a gold digger relationship with men in this area if they have a lot of money. If they don't have a lot of money, it's kind of like ick. It's kind of just, okay, this guy's pretty nice, but I don't feel anything for him, and so it's just kind of gross and leave me alone. It's similar to creep, but a creep is like someone who you would not want to talk to at all, someone who you would want gone from your life, but you'd be aware of him. You would not be aware of the ghost. Ick would be something like, well, he has to be around and I have to tolerate him, but I don't really want to think about starting a relationship with this guy, unless he has tons of money. And then some women will put up with it. Again, some women, everyone is different. If you max out your good guy score and you have no bad boy points at all, you're going to be in the friend zone. Women will go out in public with you. They will let you buy them things. That if you're very, very good to her and you're treating her with investment and you're making her look good and you don't have other women. I had a video recently with a girl talking about having a guy in the friend zone and he got a girlfriend, and so she lost her investment. And she said, well, that makes me feel bad. But then again, it wasn't a relationship, so I can't say anything. She was just talking about losing free investment from a guy who she didn't like at all. So this is not somewhere you want to be. And this is something that a lot of men have trouble with. They be as nice as they can be, and they go, why don't women want me? And it's because women are not attracted to this. It's what makes them feel safe and comfortable, and it's what makes them want to spend time around you. It's what makes them trust you. It's what makes them want to be seen with you or build a future with you, but it's not what makes them attracted to you. This confuses men, because when women give us what we value, they shoot right up this chart. And we wonder why that doesn't work for us. And the reason is that you either are not good looking and God forbid that you have unfixable things about you, but hopefully you can lose some weight and gain some muscle and start dressing better and become more masculine. If there are things that you cannot fix about your body, you have to at least be more manly.
Yeah.
And then that's going to give you some degree of points. So if you are maximum nice and you become more manly by working on yourself, take care of your face and your body and become more of a man, you might move into the husband zone. If you do a fantastic job, you could move into the Prince Charming zone. This is very...
I just want to touch on that for 1 second. So a lot of guys, and sometimes they'll phrase it in like a "I was put into the friend zone" thing. Guys put themselves in the friend zone, right? You were not put in the friend zone. You put yourself in the friend zone, right? And what does that mean? You were too nice, like you were doing all that like too nice stuff and not going for what you want, right? So not being verbal, not showing your intention, right? Because essentially you can stay in the friend zone your whole life. You can keep hoping that she sees how much of a good guy you are, or you can let it be known that you're interested and want to take her out on a date, and she says no, cool, you're willing to move on and walk away, right? Because that's another thing a lot of guys are slipping up on, right? Is like, it's totally cool if you actually want to be her friend. Like, that's totally different, right? I encourage that if that's actually what you want to do, right? Now, if you're like, oh, okay, you don't want to go out on a date. Oh, you see me as a brother. Oh, okay. Like, that's okay. We can be friends, and you still want to date her. Like, you still like her, and you're hoping like one day she's just gonna see how much of a nice guy you are. I wouldn't even bother, to be honest, right? At that point, I would start retracting your attention a bit. You can still be nice to her. Maybe still see her every once in a while if you want, right? But like if you're actually open to a real friendship at some point. But really, I would just recommend you kind of slowly cut contact. If you want, just cut it all the way, right? Up to you. But that's why it's hard for guys to get over girls that they liked where they're in the friend zone, or even over breakups, right? It's because they keep themselves around the girl they're really into, and they haven't cut it off, and they're not pursuing other options while improving themselves, essentially.
Very, 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 very rare. So we did the first column, let's do the second column. If you are a medium bad boy, if you're medium bad, if you're medium attractive or medium masculine, kind of manly, but not really, and you have no good guy things at all, sometimes you will be women's drunken mistake. This is kind of like the female sweeper. She might make a mistake and she'll feel like, well, you aren't really a bad boy. You don't really do it for me. We shouldn't have done this. I thought that you were going to be more exciting, but you're really lukewarm and you're not nice at all. If you are medium bad and you're, again, under half good, this is a bad situationship. This range is situationships, and this one is settling, because at this point, this can become permanent in public. But in all three of these are where the man will not commit, and this is where the woman will not commit. So they're all situationships, but different kinds. This one, again, the bad situationship is with a guy who's half attractive or half masculine, half what women, get excited about, but not nice enough to settle for, and not even close to nice enough to be in the husband zone. Not giving enough investment, not presentable enough, kind of dumpy, not doing great in life. That's a bad situationship where the woman will not turn the key. If you go...
And just one thing here, because he was talking about women who have other men, and then men who have other women, right? I think the psychology behind that is like women, even though they wouldn't want to admit it, they'll realize that like other girls are interested in you, they see you with another girl, or they realize subconsciously that other girls are approving you, right? So you have the social proof, and so she wants to know more about you, like why are all of these girls like this guy? Like, what's going on here, right? So you've all heard this before, probably. Like, once a guy finally gets into a relationship or a marriage, that's when he noticed all these signals from girls that, oh, they like really want him then, right? And he was like, well, where was this attention before? Right? Well, that's what I'm talking about. Like, as much as they don't want to admit it, another girl or other girls have approved the guy, basically. So there's something about him that is attractive, right? Now, on the flip side, I think a lot of guys, I'm sure there's guys that fall out of this category, but I think a lot of guys, if they're aware that women have another guy in the picture, or even other guys, it turns us off, right? I'm sure not always. I'm sure there's some guy that's into that, but I think for the majority of guys, especially when you're a little bit more self-respecting, I just got to be honest here. Like, I think because you see that and you like, there's another guy or, there's other guys that she's seeing. Like, there's a bunch of situationships going on or a bunch of casual dating on her part. It usually turns guys off who are potentially interested. So that's something worth saying here because he didn't really touch on that.
Above the half point of the good guy traits, then you get to the settling point. And at a certain point, women will settle. And I picked colors for these things that I think represent the emotions. Settling is kind of dusty. It's like an old pillowcase that hasn't been washed in a while. It's just like, it works, I guess. It's not very exciting, but it's often better than nothing. And then if you work really, really hard to bring all of these to her, if you have everything in common with her and you're supporting her really well and you make her look really good, you can be in the husband zone. And the way that women will think of you in the husband zone is, well, he's not that much of a man. He's not super attractive and he's not super manly, but man, does he ever take care of me? And that's my husband and I'm proud of him. So then let's do the last column. The last column has both of the kinds of relationships that women like the most. Women do like friend zone relationships, but they're not nearly as fun as bad boy relationships, not even close. And they're not as good as Prince Charming relationships, which are, again, very, very rare. The Prince Charming relationship is the ideal long-term, and the bad boy relationship is the ideal short-term, which is a really difficult thing about women. This is one of the most difficult things I've ever learned about women, that even if you manage to be Prince Charming, the bad boy is still more exciting because it is so bad and so short-term. It's paradoxical that being good can make her less excited for you. She'll be more excited for a bad boy than she will be for Prince Charming because there's something about stability that kind of dilutes this. And this is the most healthy kind of relationship when the man is here for the woman and the woman is here for the man. But the way that society is going lately and the way that it typically goes in human history, when a guy gets this valuable, he ends up having multiple women. And then they're all in a harem, which is a kind of situationship, which usually the women think is either a good or a mid level situationship. It's either one where they go out with a guy and they're seen with him and everyone knows he has multiple women, or it's just a quiet thing where they go over his place and that's all that they're gonna get and that's all that he's willing to give. I have a story I always tell everyone about when I was driving for Uber and I met a girl who figured out that I was good at this kind of stuff. She just picked it up really quick and she asked me, she said, "Hey, I'm seeing this guy and he has all these other girls and he won't commit to me and I'm stuck here," basically is what she was saying. And she said, "How do I get him to pick me out of all the other women?" And, I looked in the rearview mirror and I took a look at her and I had listened to her talking to her friend for a minute and I knew what kind of, life she was living, roughly. And I pretty much assessed that, there's not a lot that you can do here, especially if this is the only other guy you're seeing. And I asked her that. I said, "Is the only guy you're seeing?" And she said, "Yeah, it was just the one guy, but he had 4 or 5 girls." She actually didn't know how many it was. And so I said to her, "How well do you know this guy?" And she said, "Pretty well." And I said, "What do you think he would say if you told him you have to have only me and get rid of all your other girls or I'm leaving? Do you think he would keep the 4 other girls or keep you?" And she said he would keep the 4 other girls. And I said, "And let me ask you this. What if I gave you 100% of my love and devotion and I gave you all of the good guy stuff I had to give? Would you dump him for me?" And she got really quiet. And I said, "Don't worry about it. You're not going to hurt my feelings. We're in an Uber. It doesn't matter." And she said, "No, I would not do that." So she told me that 100% of what I could give her would have been in this range or this range, and what she was getting from this other guy was either here or here. She valued being in his harem more than having me all to herself, because in her evaluation, she likes men that have more than I do. And so this is a lesson that I'm really hoping that women can learn. I'm hoping that I can get it through to some women that you can't, if you can't improve this, you can't improve this, you can't get rid of male attention, and you have maximized this, and he's putting you here, he doesn't like you this much, and he never will. If he's got 5 women, why would he get rid of 4 of them to keep 1? He would get rid of 1 of them to keep 4. You're just here. And if you want to be here, that's your choice. I can't make that. No one can make that choice for you. If this is what you prefer, and that's what this girl said. She said she would rather be here with him than be probably here with me, at least in her evaluation. Maybe I would have been able to do this for her. Maybe. But in her assessment, I was in this icky zone. This kind of, I don't really want that. I'd rather be with an exciting guy 20% of the time. So that's pretty much it. That's how the zones work, and that's how men value women and how we place you in here, and that's how women value men and how they place us in here. And a lot of the problems that we're having in the dating market are in the way that we're negotiating. Women would rather have a part of a guy than a whole, mid-level guy. And men would rather have 1 or 2 or 5 women in this zone than pick one of them and have a one and only. It would probably make us happier if we had those kinds of relationships. But the way that we're negotiating lately, we're ending up here and here, and everyone's getting all hurt emotions over it. And of course, we're ending up here and here as well. So I can't make your decisions for you. I can't change what you value, but I can give you a map so that you know how to make your own choices.
Awesome, guys. Yeah, so one last thing worth mentioning here, right? So the bad boy thing, I think people throw around the word toxic too much and narcissist too much, right? Because it turns into a situation, right? Where like it's because narcissism is, I think, one of those dark triad traits, right? So it becomes sort of like the boy who cried wolf when there's an actual narcissist involved, right? Like it's like, they keep saying it because people keep throwing around that word on like TikTok and Instagram, etc., right? But how many of these people actually know what that is, and how many of these situations are them just lacking accountability at the end of their relationships, right? Like not willing to own up that they played a little part in it, even if maybe it was mostly the other person's fault, just hypothetically, right? So that leads into another thing, right? So I know people throw around toxic and that too much, right? So that said, let's say like the bad boy toxic, maybe he's toxic as well, I don't know, right? This, with the example, I think that if you get used to that, right? Like it's exciting because it's like a roller coaster of emotions, right? Rather than like the Prince Charming thing. That's why he was saying like the bad boy would be more exciting, right? Or that it might win out, hypothetically, is because of that exact reason. It's more exciting, and what's unfortunate is some girls might say like, oh, he's boring, right? It's boring. The reason for that is because she's used to things that are toxic. So toxic bad boy is her comfort zone, right? And her uncomfort zone, right, or discomfort zone, you could say, is the Prince Charming, hypothetically, right? So that means that she would go back to her comfort zone because it's more exciting, and she might actually be misusing the word boring, right? It might just be that it's actually calm and peaceful and actually like a potentially good relationship, but she might have a mixed up idea of this in her head, right? So she goes back to her comfort zone, which is toxic bad boy. Anyways, I hope that makes sense to you, because that might make sense of some situations you've been through in your life. But if you made it this far, thank you for watching. I appreciate you. Like, comment, subscribe, and share this video with someone who you think might benefit from it. Anyways, I'll see you guys in the next one, and you got this, bro.